Hey guys, what's up? It's FilterSC here, and I'm back for episode number 5 of the Bronze to Masters Mentality series. We're finally starting to make some progress here. We've talked about how we can improve our attitude. Now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of taking the mental side of the game and really making it work towards our quality of practice and shaping our mind for our games so that we're not just needlessly, mind-numbingly playing ladder and just trying to get better with no real concept of what we should be doing. Yeah, you know what, after 1,000 games you're going to get better if you just play the game. But this way, we're going to get a lot better, a lot faster, and it's really going to focus our gameplay and hone in on those problems, and a lot of problems we didn't necessarily even know we had. So let's take a look at what we have available to us. Now, what we're going to talk about in this one is making use of those notes from the last episode, and then how we can turn around and take those notes and turn them into a much, much higher level of practice. So we're going to take our quality of practice and shoot it up through the roof. Alright, so now that we've taken a bunch of notes on what our biggest problems are with our gameplay, as well as what a few positives are, we're going to organize those into a kind of a playlist of how we're going to attack our gameplay and kind of figure out exactly what's wrong and move on from there and kind of work on it and see if we need to do drills, see if we need to go into custom games, or see if ladder can help us get better. So there's a whole bunch of things we're going to talk about here, and the 5 sections that we're going to organize our notes into, and I'll go over these in more detail here, are complete playstyles, needs work in terms of playstyles, complete improvements, high importance improvements, and low importance improvements. And then we're going to go through all of those and kind of talk about them with a little bit more detail. Okay guys, now let's talk about how we can build our list and how we can add everything to each section and how things kind of fit into different areas and what you should be looking for, because everybody's got a different list in terms of what they've done and what's happened in their games, what they feel like they're doing well and what they feel like they're not doing so well. So in my case, when we talk about complete playstyles, I'm not going to put anything in that category because I don't feel like I'm doing anything particularly well in terms of a Reaper expand or a Mind Drop build. There's just nothing in terms of Terran versus Protoss that I'm comfortable with outside of getting the initial Reaper and maybe getting to my 3 barracks and stuff, but I don't really know where my factory fits in. I don't even know where my second gas fits in. I need to go work on that, and that means playing custom games and studying pro games. But that can all go in the next section, which is needs work. Now the needs work section is all about getting a Reaper, or for me personally, is getting a Reaper expand in and getting a Mind Drop build in. I'm only going to work on one at a time, but I need to make sure I write down both of these because these are the 2 playstyles I'm very interested in learning against Protoss, and I feel like they would benefit me to know how to do both very well, know how to transition both, know the weaknesses of both kinds of styles of play. And when you're looking at your own builds or your own gameplay, that's the type of thing you're looking for your needs work section when we start talking about playstyles. Now, the 3rd section is complete improvements. So what does this mean? Well, it means these are things that I don't feel like I really need to work on at all in the matchup. So in this particular case for Terran versus Protoss, I feel like my scouting is very strong and I have a very good idea of what the Protoss is doing with their opener. This means things like proxy oracles and stuff like that rarely ever catch me off guard, and I'm comfortable in the matchup at figuring out exactly what my Protoss player is doing. So for you, that can be anything that you feel is not related to a particular playstyle. So things like maybe your micro is really good, maybe you always control your ghost really well, stuff like that you put under complete improvements, or things you don't feel like you need to work on at all. You feel like it's already very, very good, and you don't need to list everything here, because things are going to filter in and out of that list, because there are going to be times where maybe your scouting starts to fall off a little bit because you've been focusing on other things, so you would shift that and put it in a different area of the improvements list. Now, for the next section, it's called high importance improvements, and this is where you put everything that is extremely important to winning and losing the game. Any one of these things can cost you a game very, very, very easily, and you don't necessarily need to worry about some of the other stuff. This is where your core gameplay has to get better, and this is what you're looking to improve on realistically when you play. These are all the really important things. So in my case, I put worker production in there. I put crisp attack timings because I really don't know when I should be attacking the Protoss player, and I want to get a lot better at hitting on a consistent timing. Third base faster. I feel like I'm taking my third much too late against Protoss. I feel like I can take it a lot faster, so I've also set myself a goal there. And then finally, remaxing with the correct composition. And this is something I've been struggling with for a very long time, and that means, getting the right number of Vikings and Ghosts after there's been a big trade and I've lost all my tech units and he's lost all his tech units. If he just warps in a whole bunch of High Templar and I don't make any more Ghosts, I'm kind of screwed. Same thing if he's going double Robo Colossus behind it, I'm in a lot of trouble. So I really want to make sure I'm scanning the Protoss composition and trying to figure out exactly what they're doing. And then finally we have the low importance improvement section. This is for things that you are not going to create a win or a lose scenario for you. They're not super important, but they're things you feel like you need to work on and improve in your overall gameplay. So in my particular case, what I really want to work on there is I want to drop more aggressively to reposition the Protoss, and then on top of that I want to conserve my dropships and I want to conserve the units in the drops, which means not just dropping and forgetting, not dropping, trying to fight a whole bunch of stuff and then eventually losing your drops, not dropping 2 or 3 medevacs worth of stuff when it's completely unnecessary and 1 medevac would get the same amount of damage in, that kind of stuff, as well as trying to reposition. So if I want to move the Protoss army back to his base or something, then I'm going to throw a drop at him and see how he responds to it to see if I can pull his army around. Very simple. None of these things are going to be vital towards me winning or losing the game, but they're still very important nonetheless, and they're something that eventually I'm going to try to work on when I feel like I have time. And there's nothing wrong with just making a note of it so that maybe in a game your brain just tries to do it a little bit more aggressively. So the final thing, and by far the most important thing, so hopefully you still stuck around to this part of the video, is what do we do with this information now that we already have it? Well, the number one thing you're going to find when you try to play StarCraft 2 is if you, even a small list like I have for myself here, if your list is much larger, or maybe even if it's a little bit smaller than mine, but it probably shouldn't be because I don't feel like my list is anywhere near complete yet. I've still got a lot of work to do to just find all my holes. What you want to really focus on here is improving only one thing at a time, or if things don't overlap, sometimes you can think about a second, but generally you just want to keep one thing in mind at a time when you're trying to get better and fix big problems you have in your gameplay. Then the other thing about that is you want to make sure that you're attacking them in the right way. So a good example would be right now I feel like I'm not splitting very well against Banelings. What's the best way to do that? Is it to go play a bunch of TVZs and try to split against Banelings? Not really. I should go in a custom map for that and work on it with one of the micro trainers that's available to help me kind of learn or relearn even to split my Marines at a much more efficient trade level so that I can win a lot more games just by splitting a little bit better, right? And that's something that when the games come around you can work on as well, but there are tools and the ability to kind of do it in a custom game, right? Or in that case a micro trainer or something like that. The other thing are things like build orders, or just trying to get a crisp attack timing, for instance, or even just landing my third base at 10 minutes. I need to go into custom games and practice those before I go on ladder and get comfortable with what I should be doing to accomplish that in a custom game, and then when I go to ladder I can continue to convert that. And again, most of the time you're going to be looking at doing something in a custom game and then taking it to ladder afterwards, right? Once you start to get comfortable with it. So in my particular case, what I'll be doing is I'll be going, okay, well, what do I feel like is most important? And what I've done is organize my list into sections that I feel are, or things in order of the most importance, right? So in my particular case, the number one most important thing that I need to work on first is getting the Reaper Expand build down pat, which means I've got to go research a few pro games, get a build order written up, and then be capable of following that build order in a custom game, and I should be in good shape. Now what that means is when I go to my high importance improvements and I go to play a game, I've mashed that Reaper Expand build into my brain, so I don't even have to think about it anymore. And when I go to ladder, my worker production is going to be my focus. I'm going to really focus on staying at home and making sure my worker production is done correctly, on top of just making sure I execute the build properly so I'm not missing or taking any gaps. And it'll make things much smoother. What I'm not going to worry about too much are making sure my attack timings are crisp. So if I have to go micro and focus on an attack instead of fixing my macro in the background and making sure I have the right number of workers built, I'm not going to worry about it just yet. Once I consistently start to get the worker count down when I'm playing against the Protoss player, Then I'll move into the crisp attack timings and try to work on that. And what I'll do is I'll actually move the worker production from high importance improvements into the completed section, and I'll be ready to go with kind of the next thing I need to work on, which is my crisp attack timings. Once I kind of feel like I've narrowed and hacked out all the high importance improvements, that's when I'm going to start to work on the low importance stuff. And I'm only going to work on one thing at a time, because it's too much if you try to do 3 or 4 things at once. Your brain physically cannot handle it, and you're going to regress a lot. So you really just want to work on one thing at a time. And then once I've kind of cleaned up this list and I feel like I'm in really good shape, and I've added things to the complete section, then instead of focusing on learning and trying to fix something in my gameplay, when I go hit ladder and when I go to play people, my number one focus is going to be on the game and just executing what I know how to do, and just kind of freeing up my brain power to take care of business on its own. So again, real simple, real easy. Take notes on your games, figure out the common trends, whether they're good or they're bad, and then take those common trends, put them into a list like this, and then from there, figure out the best way to attack that list so that you can get better, and you're going to get better a hell of a lot faster than if you just sat on your ass and played a bunch of ladder games, which is actually something that I've been guilty of for the last month or two, and I feel like that's the number one reason my gameplay is stagnating. So we're going to desperate times, I guess, or desperate measures, but we're really going to put this system to work, and we're going to make it work for us so that we can get out of Diamond and back into Masters, Dream Pool or not, it doesn't matter, we're going to be good to go, boys. Anyway, if you like this video, make sure you hit me up on Twitter, all that fun stuff, and I will see you guys with the next one. Take care.